So this is a little bit of background on some numbers, because there's a lot of numbers when we talk about the Great Depression and the New Deal. This is not the best list. I've got a lot of apples and oranges in here, but it goes from 1920 to the present with some interruptions. 1920, the collective consumer debt is about $7 billion, roughly averaging out to $5,000 per household, and these are in more modern numbers, adjusted for inflation. 2007, we have $735 billion, $9,000 per household, and this is just credit card. So this is an example of apples and oranges, because sometimes it's credit card alone, sometimes it's credit card and car, and sometimes it's total debt, which would include your house and that sort of stuff. So in 2007, $2 trillion, 18,000 per household, and that's just credit card and car. What's interesting about the year 2000? It's the Great Recession. Yeah, it's the beginning of the Great Recession. 2008 is the first year of the Great Recession, and 13 trillion, I forgot the close parentheses, that's total debt, so that's everything wrapped up, credit card, car, any loans, student loans, car, house, whatever. 2010, 775 billion, so we're coming down. 2015, 11.9 trillion total debt, and then it's broken down in various categories here. And then 2017, this is some more recent news that we kind of started dealing with our debt as a result of the recession, but now things are ticking up again, and we're kind of getting closer to our Great Recession total debts again. 12 trillion here and 13 and change up there. And so that's got some economists kind of a little bit worried. In 2007, 2008, it was a housing bubble that burst. Some economists are thinking about another bubble is about to burst. What would be another debt bubble that is huge? College debt, college loans. That there might be a coming college loan bubble. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, great. I heard that. Yes. Oh boy, fun. All right, real quick, some stats to ponder. Haves and have-nots in the 1920s. Top 1% rose by 75%. So through the decade of the 20s, the top 1%, their income rose 75%. By contrast, by comparison, the bottom 99 rose by 9%. Top fifth had 33% of the wealth in that decade. The bottom 40 had 10%. And here's the real kicker. 80% of Americans had no savings. And that's the issue of saving money is an and I don't know much about the economy. So forgive me for my lack of specificity. But I know that the issue of saving is problematic in our modern economy. Your grandparents always said, and your great-grandparents certainly, because they'd be getting more towards this time, they really put a high value on putting money away, saving money. But when you do that, you take money out of the economy. Instead of saving, sometimes they want you to spend, go shop, stimulate the economy. But then that causes a problem, because what if we have some rainy days in the future? Then there's no safety net there. And so it's this conundrum. What do we do? Well, in 80% of Americans, they've got no safety net. And there is no other safety net, because it's the 1920s. What doesn't exist yet? Yeah, there's no Social Security, there's no real welfare programs. It's all voluntary based, through churches or civic organizations. And I just said voluntary. In fact, I'm just going to say it again, voluntary for those of you at home. Anyway, moving on. Here is, this is of 2004, so we're jumping all over the place. What's the difference between wealth and income? Look at the top 25%. They have a lot of wealth, and their wealth is way more than their income. Where is their wealth coming from? Property, investments. Income is what? Your paycheck, what you get for doing your job. So right now, Donald Trump gets $1 or something like that. He's apparently working without an income. I don't know what the president makes, like $400,000 or something like that. So he's apparently told people that he's not collecting that, but apparently by law he has to collect something. So, but all his wealth is based through, his properties and his investments and so on. Whereas on the other side, when you go further down the scale, the less you have wealth and the more you're reliant on your income. And so these people here are really susceptible to payroll taxes, income taxes possibly, the cost of living if it goes up. These people have an insulation to that because their wealth or their money is not through salaries but through wealth. I told you I didn't know much about this. Here's a cool stat from like today. It's fresh. Smell it. Fresh. These 8 individuals own the same wealth as the poorest half of the world's population combined. These 8 people have as much as the poorest half of... Yeah, some of these people we don't know. Carlos Slim, I think, is from Mexico. Amancio Ortega, I don't know him. But the others are Americans. Yeah. Investor. This is showing from 1980 to 2008. You can see the growing gap between the richest fifth and the poorest fifth. Now you have to read the graph backwards. You read it from right to left. I don't know. So 1980, look what's happened to the bottom fifth as far as their incomes. When adjusted, they're not going anywhere. Now some economists see a problem here, others don't. They say, well, sure, in real terms, their income is basically flatlined. But that amount, though it's not rising appreciably, actually can do more for them because what's happened to the cost of stuff through globalization? Here's the kicker. Here's the weird kicker. And again, I'm telling you, I don't know much about the economy, but I know a few things. So we're all on this kick of buy American and jobs to American. That's all great. That's important. But outsourcing has made things cheaper. Clothes, food. So you have even the very poorest of Americans, they have huge flat screen TVs. They have Apple iPhones. They have all this wonderful blessings. How are they able to afford it? Well, costs have come down. They have computers. They have all these things. Food is much cheaper. So some economists say, well, this looks worse than it actually is. That their standard of living is higher than what it would seem. This is basically the same information, but you have all the quintiles there. And you can see when you get towards the top, that's where the real growth starts to take off. Right around the Clinton presidency. They used to say of Clinton, well, what did you hate most about the Clinton presidency? Was it the peace or was it the prosperity? What? Okay. All right. You at home, no one laughed at that joke.
I get it.
This graph sent some chills down the spine in 2007 because it looks like one of those crazy ink blot test, where it's folded over, because on this side are the conditions that led to the Great Depression, and these look very similar. And to be honest, some of you think, well, we didn't go to a Great Depression. Yeah, but apparently we almost did. And the recession was really, really bad, but we almost had a global economic shutdown that we narrowly avoided by many accounts. Well, yeah, I don't know. Are we going to be good? Are we going to behave? So, why did the Great Depression happen? This is a huge summary. Well, some parts of the American economy are beginning to struggle in the world marketplace. Another blame is put at the feet of high restrictive tariffs. Another aspect is overproduction on the farms. I think we told a little bit about this story about how the farmers had enjoyed really, really good times during World War I because they were feeding the world and there was so much demand for their products that they pressed into service a lot more land. They bought a ton of machinery that put people to work here in Chicago. It was abnormally rainy on the arid southern plains, and so that created good growing conditions. It was a perfect storm of awesomeness. And then when the war ended and Europeans started to farm again, there was a glut of grain on the market. Prices dropped, but the debt stayed there. They stopped farming. It stopped raining. The wind started blowing. Unemployment in the McCormick factory in Chicago because no one's buying farm machinery anymore. And on and on and on. It kind of radiates out into the economy. Many Americans were getting hooked on credit. You notice that they don't have savings. Well, in the 1920s, they started introducing for the first time consumer credit. Now, we all know about consumer credit today because, most adults have like 4 active credit cards or more in their wallet. That idea is brand new for the 20s. And there's a lot of consumer products to buy, brand new consumer products, like the electric icebox was something that all modern families had to have. And automobiles and radios and new fashions and so on. And we start to see a real growth in the inequality of income during that time period as well. Well, why did the Great Depression last so long is another question. Well, the conservative answer is too much government meddling. The liberal answer is not enough government meddling. And you can take that to a DBQ near you. Okay. Settle down, Miss Sheltina. I know you get excited. And people are still arguing about whether the New Deal, how effective it was. Did it slow down or ameliorate the effects of, big word, Miss Sheltina, soften the blow that was the Great Depression, or conservative economists today even say it made it last longer and made it worse. I remember when Barack Obama was elected, installed into the White House, one of the first things we found out about him was what book was on his nightstand. And the book that he read going to sleep was a history of the New Deal in 2008, during the Great Recession. And a lot of us said, oh, he gets it, yes! And others said, no, he doesn't get it at all. These are failed policies, don't go that direction. Well, will the real Herbert Hoover please stand up? Please stand up. All you other Herbert Hoovers are just imitating. Yeah, I went there, Eminem. So give me some props. I'm 48. Come on. Well, who is this guy? Prior to the presidency, everyone knew him as the skilled administrator, the organizational genius. Where did they get such ideas? Well, they got it from World War I. He was involved in organizing his wealthy friends bring relief to the neutral country of Belgium that was invaded by the Germans and treated really roughly. Raised $1 billion for food and medicine. And again, don't write that whole thing, but the underlying stuff is really the meat of it. Under Wilson, Hoover ran the U.S. Food Administration. I don't know why I didn't capitalize that. I should have. Organized through voluntary efforts. Mr. Altina said voluntary again. The organization of gathering food, clothing, supplies to war devastated Europe. Everybody knew that to Hooverize meant to ration household materials for the war effort. So his name is not being used in vain here. Later on, Hoover's name is going to be applied to some other things not so nice. But right now, Hoover is seen as kind of this great savior of Europe. And when the Great Depression hits and Hoover is president, the first thought that Americans had was a religious thought. They thought of the time in the Bible, the leader raised up for such a time as this. Because they knew what he did. Certainly, if he does this for the Europeans, surely he will do even better for us, right?
No.
Oh, well, hold on now. Hold on. Because we don't know who the real Hoover is yet. We don't know. He easily wins the 28 Republican nomination for president, and typical Republican platform, just like Coolidge had refused to pass the Hagen, sorry. I was thinking about Holly Smoot for some reason. I was getting tripped up there. Supports prohibition. That's another typical Republican position at the time. Lower taxes, more prosperity, chicken in every pot. Car in all garages, as the meme goes. Typical conservative Republican fare. Kind of still the same today a bit. All right, we're moving on. So start to summarize. Well, don't write this down, but just listen. It's a pro-business era. The 1920s were, go, go, go. Think of that Calvin Coolidge cartoon with him playing the saxophone. Hoover's cabinet included 6 millionaires. Oh my goodness. I should have copied it. There was a great infographic that measured Trump's current cabinet in units of Taylor Swift. So they took Taylor Swift's annual income, and then they applied it to the wealth of the cabinet members for Trump. They say so-and-so is 5 Taylor Swifts wealthy, that sort of thing. I will find it for tomorrow, and you will love it. You will enjoy it. Hoover believes that science and technology are going to help save the day, so he's a bit of a technocrat. And he is an early Ronald Reagan supporter, even though he doesn't even know who Ronald Reagan is. You reduce taxes on the wealthy and corporations, and they'll invest that money in expanding the business. It's called supply-side economics or trickle-down economics. This is the important thing to write down. Hoover felt generally, although you will see in the DBQ, he'll say, no, that's not me. That's not me at all. But generally, this is his theory. Hoover felt that the ups and downs of the business cycle were natural and not to be tampered with. You can't stop the wind from blowing or the rain from falling, but you can wear a coat and you can get an umbrella, which are things you do yourself. He had a theory called rugged individualism. do it self. One thing, though, he knows, it's not manly and it's not American to get or to provide direct relief, meaning a direct handout to the unemployed, to the hungry. The government's not going to do that. Who's going to do that? Volunteers. Where do they work? Well, where they are? They're at churches, they're at civic organizations. It might be your neighbor down the street. Yeah. Hesitant to provide direct relief. All right. Don't write this down. You know this story. People losing their jobs and having to build shanties. They started calling them Hoovervilles. Newspapers were Hoover blankets. Rabbits were Hoover hogs. But the other part of the story is people saying Hoover's not doing anything. He's doing a lot of stuff, actually. The one thing that I want you to write down is the Reconstruction Finance Corporation. He gives some money to farmers, but the big thing that he's known for is the RFC, the Reconstruction Finance Corporation. Designed to keep businesses afloat so that they can keep their businesses going, obviously, and keep their employees working. The RFC, by its initials, is very reminiscent of the CCC, the AAA, the PWA, the WPA, the TVA, the New Deal alphabetical agencies. So here we have an alphabetical agency, a New Deal-ish organization prior to the New Deal. And this is Hoover. So don't think Hoover just sat around wagging his finger at the poor. No. But the Depression did deepen. So what's the rub on Hoover? Well, maybe he didn't act fast enough. But maybe that's the rub on FDR as well. All right, moving on. Well, this is where the rubber really hits the road. 1932, what's important about 32? In an election year, he has a problem with the bonus army. These are veterans of World War I coming to Washington asking for a bonus. The bonus had been promised to them as kind of a reward for their service. It was to be paid in 1945, which, of course, through dramatic irony, we know the importance of that, but they didn't know what the importance of 1945 was going to be. They thought, we need this money now. Pay us our bonus early. And so they came, and Hoover actually helps them, gives them some supplies, and he says, you can stay while Congress debates this. Well, Congress comes back and says no. He says, okay, we allowed you to stay, now it's time to go. Some of them go, others stay, and when they refuse to leave, then Hoover calls out the army to remove them. And what you have is the army manhandling and roughly treating veterans, burning their shanties down, all in the sight of the Capitol building the summer before the election. The optics of this aren't good. Hoover is going after loyal Americans who just want what's been promised to them early. They say, we're going to die before 1945. And then he goes and passes the highest tariff in American history at a time when most economists are saying, don't do this, this is the exact wrong thing to do. All right. Tomorrow,